Today we're talking about angle relationships and transversals. A transversal is any line, doesn't matter which direction it goes, that crosses through a pair of parallel lines. So our blue line here is a transversal as long as the two black lines are parallel. Now a transversal with two parallel lines creates 8 different angles. And so today we're going to talk about those 8 angles and how they relate to one another. The first type of angle pair we want to talk about is corresponding angles. Corresponding angles are angles that are both above or both below their respective parallel lines. So here I have 2 parallel lines. One we're going to call line L. The other one we're going to call line M. So one corresponding angle has to touch line L. The other corresponding angle has to touch line M. So for instance, 3 and 4 would not be a pair of corresponding angles because they both are on line L. Alright, so if I'm going to talk about corresponding angles, let me give you some sample pairs here. My first pair that I'm going to be talking about would be like 1 and 5. 1 and 5 would be a set of corresponding angles. Okay, they're on the same side of the transversal. They're both to the left. They're both above their respective parallel line. 1 is above line L. 5 is above line M. So 1 and 5 is a set of corresponding angles. The next one we're going to talk about is 3 and 7. They're both on the same side of the transversal, right? They're on the left side of the transversal. 3 is below line L. 7 is below line M. That makes 3 and 7 a pair of corresponding angles. The next set we want to look at is 2, and what's its corresponding angle? 6. Now they're both above their own parallel line. 2 is above line L, 6 is above line M, but this time they're both to the right of the transversal. So what's our last pair of corresponding angles? 4 and 8. 4 and 8 would be a set of corresponding angles. I forgot to write down that other pair of 2 and 6. The main thing you need to know about corresponding angles, besides how to identify the pair, is that their measures are equal. So for instance, if angle 1 was, let's say, 135 degrees, then angle 5 would have to be that same 135 degrees. If angle 2, let's see, was 45 degrees, or yeah, let's just say it's 45 degrees, then angle 6 would have to be 45 degrees. Any pair of corresponding angles have to have the same measure, and it's going to be that way with all corresponding angle pairs. The next type of angle pair we're moving on to are alternate interior angles. Now, alternate means different sides of the transversal or opposite sides of the transversal. So if I have one to the left, its partner is going to be to the right of our transversal. Interior is this area in here between the 2 parallel lines. That's the interior of our sketch. Now again, they have to each touch their own parallel lines. So one of our angles is going to touch line L. The other angle is going to touch line M. I never have 2 angles on the same parallel line. So one pair of alternate interior angles would be 3 and 6. 3 and 6 would be one example of alternate interior angles. My other set then is 4 and 5. 4 and 5 would be alternate interior angles. And again, just like the last time, their measures are always going to be equal. So if angle 4 is 120 degrees, so is angle 5. If angle 3 is 36 degrees, so is angle 6. They're always going to have equal measures. The next pair of angles are alternate exterior angles. Alternate, again, meaning opposite sides of the transversal, one on the left, one on the right. Exterior, then, is the area outside the two parallel lines. So we're above line L or below line M. Again, one of our angles has to touch line L, the other has to touch line M. And remember, they're on opposite sides of the transversal, one right and one left. So alternate exterior angles then would be 1 and 8. Another example of alternate exterior would be 2 and 7. And just like our other angles, measures are equal. Within the pair, anyway. So whatever the measure for angle 2 is, angle 7 is going to have that same measure. Whatever the measure for angle 1 is, it's going to be the same measure as angle 8. So alternate exterior angles have the same measure no matter what. We have a few more types of angle pairs to go. Some you already know, some you don't. They all need to go in your notes, however. Some that you may know from your past are supplementary angles. A pair of supplementary angles add to 180 degrees. You can't have more than 2 angles in a pair. So 2 angles that add up to 180 degrees are supplementary. 2 angles that add to 90 degrees are complementary. So an example of complementary pairs, I could have one angle that was 60 degrees and one angle that was 30 degrees. Those two together would be complementary. Supplementary, if I had one that was 150 degrees, the other one would have to be 30 degrees in order for them to add up to 180 and be supplementary. I always had a hard time remembering how to remember which was supplementary and which was complementary until one day a student showed me S for supplementary, C for complementary. The S for supplementary I can make into a 180. The C for complementary I can make into a 90. And ever since then, I haven't had to go back and remember which was supplementary and which was complementary. Maybe it will help you too. Adjacent angles are any two angles that have a common side and a common vertex. Adjacent angles can't ever be separate, and it doesn't matter what their measures are. I can't have adjacent angles that are separate because then they wouldn't share side or vertex. But any two angles that are side by side and have a side and a vertex in common. Here's our vertex. This is our common side, right? These two angles would be adjacent. Finally, vertical angles. Vertical angles are only created when two lines form an X. Watch out for this because a lot of people forget that when it forms a K, vertical angles don't happen. When two lines form an X and there are four angles created, the angles that are across from each other, like 1 and 3, are called vertical angles. They have exactly the same measurement, just like our other angle pairs. So 2 and 4 would be another set of vertical angles. But again, it only happens when two lines form an X, and they're the angles across from one another. And just like our other angle pairs, measures are equal. In class, we're going to practice on clickers. So in the video, we're going to skip that part. We're going to do a little bit of practice though. We're going to name the angle pairs. We're looking at angles 3 and 6. What type of angle pair is that? Alternate interior. 1 and 4. Notice how they only touch the top parallel line. They don't touch the other one. These two lines form an X and they're right across from each other though, so they are vertical angles. 2 and 6, complementary. Not complementary, corresponding angles. 2 and 6 are corresponding angles. Whoops. 5 and 6, they're supplementary. That's the only type of angle pair they can be, except for they also share a common vertex and side, so they could also be adjacent. 1 and 8 are alternate exterior. How about 2 and 7? They're also alternate exterior. How about 3 and 7? What do you think they are? Corresponding angles. And finally, 4 and 5? Yep, alternate interior angles. So if angle 1 has a measure of 43 degrees, what's the measure of angle 8 going to be? Yeah, 43 degrees. If the measure of angle 3 is 120, then what's the measure of angle 7? Because they're corresponding angles, 7 is also going to be 120 degrees. If angle 4 is 82 degrees, angle 5 has to be 82 degrees since they're alternate interior. If angle 2 is 135 degrees, angle 8, these two don't match up with one of our angle pairs that we've already talked about, but there's lots of ways to find those missing measures. If 2 is 135 degrees, then so is 3 because they're vertical. So is 6 because they're corresponding. So is 7 because they're alternate exterior. Then we can use those angle measures to help us find the other 4. These two have to be supplementary, right? So this one's going to be 45 degrees. These two also have to be supplementary, or you can say 1 and 4 are vertical, so this one's also 45 degrees. 4, and 5 are alternate interior, so this is 45 degrees. So will angle 8. So when you end up with something like this, you're only going to get 2 different angle measures at a time. So if 2 is 135, then 8 has to be 45. How about if 2 is 135, then 1 would have to be 45 degrees. And last but not least, how many angle measures do you need before you can find all 8 angle measures? You only need 1. You can use all of our angle relationships to find the other 7 angle measures. Write down any questions, and I'll see you tomorrow. Your assignment for this section, Angle Relationships Worksheet. Make sure to read the directions, and good luck.